closing date for your new home is fast approaching. You've provided your lender with all the necessary documents and information, and your mortgage is approved. Yay! Now we are in the home stretch. So what's next? This is the 9th and last video in my series, Real Estate Fundamentals, Buying Your First Home with Karp Residential. I'm Nancy Karp. So once you receive a green light from your lender that your loan is approved and you are cleared to close on your home, the lawyers and your lender begin preparing for the closing, and they reserve a day and time for the closing at a local title company. Of course, if you're purchasing with cash, then they would have already started these preparations shortly after attorney review is over. What do you need to do prior to the closing? Well, once the closing date is established and finalized, you need to contact all the various utility, cable, internet, whatever companies to set up your account with them. Be sure to specify the date you are taking possession of the property, which isn't always the same as the closing date. In some cases, if the sellers are renting back or something like that, you might be taking possession at a later date. Your realtor should provide you with a list of all the utility companies that service the area that you're moving into to make this a little bit easier. If you're moving into a condo or an attached property, be aware that some utilities are going to be covered by the homeowners association, and you don't need to make any of those contacts or connections. The seller is also obligated to notify the same service providers to end their accounts on the same day that you're doing it, so that it all is seamless. Okay, your lender is going to provide you with a preliminary settlement statement, and this is going to show you how much money you need for the closing. Now, don't plan on bringing cash to the closing. Everything is handled by wire transfer these days. Your lawyer will tell you to bring a checkbook just in case the numbers change a little bit at closing, but the bulk of your closing expenses, including the rest of your down payment, will be paid with a wire transfer, which you will probably send 1 or 2 business days prior to the closing. Now, in addition to your down payment, and remember the earnest money you already paid counts towards that down payment, there are other costs related to the closing that you will need to cover. Most of these are directly related to your loan, and your lender is required to provide you with estimates of these costs early in the process, so you should already know about those. There are some additional costs paid at closing, including your lawyer's fee. There may be wire transfer fees, title insurance, recording fees, and in some cases, a local transfer tax. Most of the time around here, those are paid by the seller, but some municipalities, it's paid by the buyer. If you want more information on any of these fees, just reach out to me or anybody on the team and we can give you more of that information. On the day of the closing or before, you and your realtor will have a final walkthrough of your soon-to-be home. The purpose of this walkthrough is to make sure that the seller has moved out and to make sure that the property is in the same condition as when you last saw it. In some cases, you can get reimbursed at the closing table if something's amiss. For example, if the seller failed to move out all their personal property, or if they damaged a wall while they were moving out, or if they just left a huge mess behind. Keep in mind that the home is only supposed to be in what we call broom clean condition. That means that it is generally cleaned out, but it might not necessarily pass what I would call a white glove test. Garbage waiting at the curb, that's okay. And if they've left some minor items for you, like cleaning supplies and extra light bulbs, that's not a big deal, that's okay too. I'd look inside all the cabinets, all the storage area, inside the refrigerator, the freezer, etc. If there is anything of concern to you, take photos and send them to your lawyer as soon as possible so that the 2 lawyers can discuss the issue and come up with some possible resolutions prior to the closing if possible. So now you're ready for the closing. Many lenders have been making the process a little bit easier and less time-consuming by allowing their buyers to sign some of the mortgage documents electronically in advance of the closing. If you are given this opportunity, it is definitely worthwhile to take advantage of it. However, there are always several documents that require what they call a wet signature. That means you need to sign in person with a pen. The documents related to the actual transfer of property are generally signed at the closing table as well. Most of the time, the sellers sign these documents ahead of time and will not be at the closing. If for some reason you or another buyer, if there's two of you or more, if somebody cannot attend the closing in person, let your lawyer know and give them as much advance notice on this as possible, and they can usually make some type of accommodation for that. You typically get keys and garage remotes at the closing, again, unless the seller is renting back for a short time. Once you move in, I do strongly suggest to all of my buyers that you have all of the locks on the property rekeyed. So congratulations on your new home. Now all that's left is moving in. Please reach out to me or anyone on my team if you have any questions, and look for my next series of videos called On the Home Front with Nancy Karp. I'm Nancy Karp with App Properties Christie's International Real Estate and the Karp Residential team. Thank you so much for watching.